Yo, what's good, everybody? We're gonna have some fun tonight. I'm looking forward to it. Just fix my stuff here. All right, how's everybody doing? Let me know you're live in the chat. It's Tuesday. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's Tuesday is going wonderfully. It's gonna be awesome. David Gray, you were here early. You're already weighing in on the filibuster. We're not even there yet. It's all right, though. What's good, Arnold? Glad to see you here, as always. Holy crap, Darnisha. What's up, sis? Wow. This is going to be an extra special broadcast. Man. Darnisha and I used to work together. Let's see. Ricky Manor, what's good, brother? Glad to see you. Scott Mezek, every day is a good one. Yes. Every day is a good day. Let me go ahead and pod this down real quick. All right. I'm going to let some more people get in here. All right. So we got some things to talk about. We're going to talk about Joe Manchin. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris. My boo, Kamala Harris. Even though I don't share her political beliefs. I don't care what you guys say. Kamala Harris is beautiful. Anyway, we're also going to talk about China. And we're going to talk about what Florida is doing in relations to China and other countries. But first, before I get started, as always, share this video. And if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. I'm watching you. Are you doing it? Yeah, some of you aren't doing it. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, damn it. And also, if you want to support my work, join my community at afreshperspective.locals.com. That's afreshperspective.locals.com. I've been much better about uploading premium content that only people in that who subscribe to that community can see. So give it a shot. The link's in the show notes. It's only $4.99 per month. That's it. And you can support me and the awesome content that I create. Also, as always, if you want to do a one-time donation, that works too. Here are the links. And they're also in the show notes. The show notes as well. But I've got yes, Miki, I do have new equipment. This is a new microphone. I love it. I'm gonna have to think of a name for it. But yeah, it was time for an upgrade so that, y'all can hear me better. But you know what? Let's just get into it. The first thing that I want to talk about, let me pull up my notes. Oh, also, the debate with Bryson Gray, we are going to be having a conversation soon. We're still trying to work out the day it didn't work for my schedule last week, and the other day that we were talking about didn't work for him. So we're still trying to figure it out, but that conversation is going to happen. I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a lot more civil than you guys might expect. I think we're going to agree on some things, and I think it'll be cool. Also, if you haven't seen his conversation with Solomon Graham, I believe that was last week. Check that out too. That was a great conversation on both parts. So I think that hopefully we can have at least something close to a constructive conversation. I think we will. I think we will. What else do I have going on? Oh, I'm going to be part of a panel on Friday on Politically Provoked. It's been a while since I've been on there. But it's going to be a panel. We're going to talk about some of the issues of the day. We're probably going to talk about some silly stuff too. So looking forward to that. I will give you more details as that date approaches, and I'll be sharing it. Ricky, you're already snapping on Bryson. All right, fine, whatever. But again, I do think it'll be a good conversation. If for anything to differentiate between the two views, like when you talk about being pro-black and things like that, I think a lot of people on the right have a lot of misconceptions about that term, and they really shouldn't. You can be pro-black and be a conservative. It's actually possible. But we will discuss that more later. I actually just recorded a video about that PragerU tweet, the one where where they talk about identifying by race as racist. A lot of that ridiculous crap comes out of PragerU. So I'm going to be uploading that probably tonight or early tomorrow. I won't put that one behind the paywall because I think I need to clear up a lot of misconceptions that conservatives have about this issue. So I'm just going to go ahead and publish it. And what's the panel on? We're not sure yet. They're actually letting everybody who's going to be on the panel put forth a topic. So I haven't chosen mine yet, but I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting. This one will be a little bit more lighthearted. One of the guys that's going to be on it, Sleeve T, I was with him on my first panel for them, and he's a cool guy. He's a social democrat, totally on the left, but dude's awesome. So without further ado, let's talk about Joe Manchin. Now, I'm going to read from an article that I wrote, but I'm also going to read from an article on libertynation.com that was written by my boy, Jim Fight. Great guy. He's one of the editors. Been with Liberty Nation for a while. Excellent writer. He's very good on Second Amendment type issues. And I actually want to have him on my show at some point because he knows how to get into the weeds of all the 2A issues. He understands the law regarding it. He's studied Supreme Court decisions on the Second Amendment. This guy knows his stuff. He is so good at writing about the Second Amendment that he just knows a lot. He probably knows more than the average gun owner about guns, about the law, and all that stuff. Sometimes I read his articles about laws regarding guns, and I can't even understand it because I don't even have a reference point because I don't have a gun. Yeah, now all these conservatives are going to be flooding me like, why don't you have a gun yet? It's going to happen. It'll happen. It'll happen when I'm ready, okay? Gosh. But it will happen. Either way, y'all know I'm a very strong supporter of the Second Amendment. But I digress. I think I had too much coffee today. So we're going to talk about Joe Manchin. And he's been the source of controversy. Him and actually Senator Kyrsten Sinema. But a lot of them have focused more on Manchin, probably because, they're sexist and they're going to focus more on the man than the woman. But he is pissing a lot of people off on the left. A lot of people for a few reasons. Mainly, he is refusing to support the voting legislation that the Democrats want to ram through Congress. That would essentially result in a federal takeover of the elections instead of leaving it up to the states, which is how it was intended to be. And the guy doesn't want to get rid of the filibuster. Yeah, that's a huge sin. Because the Democrats are saying, the filibuster was a product of Jim Crow and it was used because people are racist and they wanted to use the filibuster to prevent legislation that was designed to deal with racism. But despite calling it a relic of the past, they didn't have any problem using the filibuster about, I think, 300 times last year. So obviously they don't really mean what they say about that. They're just doing the usual, everything is racist, so don't do it or else you're a racist. So I'm going to quote from the article, and actually Joe Manchin published an article in the Charleston Gazette-Mail, I believe on Friday or Saturday, and he explained why he was refusing to support the ending the filibuster and supporting the For the People Act, which is also known as the Corrupt Politicians Act, depending on which side you're on. So actually, I'll kind of quote from his article first, but in his article, he said, quote, voting legislation must be the result of both Democrats and Republicans coming together to find a pathway forward. He also wrote, quote, voting and election reform that is done in a partisan manner will all but ensure partisan divisions continue to deepen. Now, I can respect that stance. And even if you were a Republican, I can respect that stance. If it was an issue on which every Republican wanted a piece of legislation to be passed, and maybe in most cases, especially with something that is this big of an issue, I'm going to want a little bit of bipartisanship here. I know some people might disagree with that, but I think it's, not everything has to be just a party line vote. I think that's a little bit dangerous. Now, he also wants to keep the filibuster because it is a tradition that allows the minority party to still have a voice in what legislate in the type of legislation that is being passed or not passed. That is how our government was intended to work by the founders. It wasn't, I mean, it's counterintuitive, right? I mean, it was never meant to be able to be a well-oiled machine that just rammed stuff through quickly. No, it had to go, they wanted for legislation to go through a grueling process before it became reality. So that's why they put a lot of high standards on it. That's why the filibuster is what was even established in the first place. But a lot of people weren't happy about it. So here's what Jim Fight wrote. He wrote, quote, "But the truth is, no matter how loathed by liberals, he's practically untouchable so long as he keeps playing the role of reliable and reasonable moderate. Manchin hails from a very conservative area. He served in the West Virginia House of Delegates from 1982 to 1986 and the state Senate from 1986 to 1996. And then later on, he became the West Virginia Secretary of State from 2000 to 2004. He also says, quote, "If it weren't for Manchin, both U.S. senators for West Virginia would likely be Republicans, giving the GOP a slim majority in the upper chamber." So Manchin knows that he has some power here, right? He is kind of a swing vote, and he's not always going to vote with his party. On most things he does, but on larger issues, he seems to be, and he's shown this in the past, but he has been reticent to kind of go all in on that because he does want a level of bipartisanship, and he wants at least some buy-in from the opposite party. Some of the arguments that he made is that some of the things that he complained about was that the debate today isn't about finding common ground. It's about seeking partisan advantage. He also states that partisan policymaking won't instill confidence in America's democracy. It will destroy it. He also pointed out that when the GOP held the Senate, Democrats were defenders of the filibuster. You didn't see Democrats complaining about the filibuster when the Republicans had power over the Senate. And I guarantee you that if and when the Republican Party takes back the Senate in 2022, they're not going to be talking about the filibuster anymore. You had very few people who were actually talking about it when it wasn't advantageous to them. There was at least one Democratic senator who was, which, I respect the consistency. I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head. But Manchin also said that while the process can be slow and result in compromise, but that's better than the alternative, an America in which a single party can dictate and demand whatever it wants, whenever it wants. So Manchin made some excellent points, but people aren't seeing it that way. A lot of Democrats are lashing out at him, and they're, casting him as all kinds of stuff. They're saying the kind of things about him that they usually say about Republicans. So I'm going to read off some of the responses. Some are on Twitter, some are in interviews, some journalists weighed in. I'm going to read off some of the responses. But that if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need a backdrop here. I'm going to need to set the mood. And we need to understand that what the Democrats are complaining about is very, very sad, because a lot of Democrats do want just strict partisanship. And they are big mad at Manchin for not acquiescing to this desire. So let's begin. Representative Jamal Bowman weighed in and said, quote, "Mitch McConnell during Obama's presidency said he would do anything in his power to stop Obama. He's also repeated that now during the Biden presidency by saying he would do everything in his power to stop President Biden. Quote, and now Joe Manchin is doing everything in his power to stop democracy and to stop our work for the people, the work the people sent us here to do." On CBS, host Anthony Mason accused Manchin of possibly sinking, quote, the move to override Republican state laws that limit voting access. Mondaire Jones, Representative Mondaire Jones, another New York Democrat, he took it a step further. He said, quote, Manchin's op-ed might as well be titled, Why Owls Vote to Preserve Jim Crow. Let's keep going. Let's go to Twitter. On Twitter, former ESPN host Jamel Hill tweeted, quote, this is so on brand for this country. Record number of black voters show up to save this democracy only for white supremacy to be upheld by a cowardly, power-hungry white dude. Senator Joe Manchin is a clown. Let's keep going. Host of The View, Joy Behar, who is known for a lot of stupid comments and putting on blackface at one point in her life. She said, quote, it's time to write or call Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. The senator's name is Kirsten Sinema. I don't know who Kristen Sinema is. But she said, quote, go to their websites and tell them to work with the Democrats and save our democracy. A lot is at stake right now, and these two are holding the country hostage. Nobody likes to be held hostage. And it's amazing that two senators are holding the entire nation hostage. It's tragic. Don Winslow, he says, quote, Dear Democrats, listen to Senator Joe Manchin. He tells you who he is every single day. He told CNN again today. You cannot build anything around this guy, including and especially voting rights. Robert Reich said, quote, Joe Manchin says ending the filibuster will destroy our government. Meanwhile, McConnell just used the filibuster to kill an independent investigation into an attempted overthrow of the U.S. government. It's so sad. It's so sad. The Washington Post's Jennifer Rubin, who plays a conservative on television and in print, she wrote, quote, it's time for Manchin to put up or share blame for Republican subversion of democracy. And she wrote that, quote, the status quo leaves him with latitude to make holier than thou pronouncements to decry both sides. Another quote from Representative Jamal Bowman. He said, quote, Joe Manchin has become the new Mitch McConnell. Actually, that was in the same quote he said before. I don't know, whatever. You know, this is just so sad that I'm not thinking straight. I'm sorry, guys. But that is how the Democrats are responding to this. And we need to take them seriously. Don't laugh at them. Don't laugh. You better not be laughing. I know it's hard. Okay. So enough with the ambiance. So that's what's going on here, right? They don't like that they're not going to get their way. Here's the thing. Here's one of the reasons why they're so adamant about this. President Joe Biden desperately needs a win. He does. Because he's been taking a lot of L's lately with the way his administration has handled certain things. And with some of the events that have happened, which, by the way, I don't think they're all his fault. I think some of the things that have happened aren't necessarily his fault, at least not directly. But the buck stops here, right? I mean, he's in the Oval Office. And, you know, we've had a migrant crisis for the past few months, which is his fault. That I will blame on him. This is Biden's border crisis. Everybody knows that it's not being handled well. We're going to be talking about Kamala Harris in a second in her duty as border czar, even though she won't go to the border. And they essentially invited a flood of migrants to come to our southern border without a plan on how to deal with it. You know, we had the hostilities flaring up between Israel and the Palestinians. That I don't really directly blame him for, but I do think the fact that he might be viewed as weak by the international community might have been why Hamas thought that they can get away with launching rockets into Israel. That situation is pretty nuanced. So again, I'm not going to blame that all on Biden. But it still happened under his watch and he gets blamed for it. We've had two major hacks, one on an oil pipeline and the other on a meat company, and that's caused a lot of problems. Jobless rates are not rebounding the way that his administration expected. So again, he needs a win here. He's got a lot of money that he wants to push through for the budget. He wants to blow it out by trillions of dollars. And honestly, Republicans don't have much of a leg to stand on when it comes to this stuff because they didn't care when Trump was doing it. But still, Biden's in the Oval Office right now, and he has a package that wants to go even beyond anything that Trump did. And he has a series of programs, a series of legislative packages that he needs to get through to do it. He has a radical anti-gun agenda. He needs to get that through as well. He got coronavirus relief through, so he has that to kind of play himself up a little bit. That ain't going to be enough. And Joe Manchin refusing to get rid of the filibuster is going to make it almost impossible for him to get a lot of his more radical legislation through. The best chance he has is to maybe get something that's a little bit more watered down, to maybe get Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema along with it, and maybe a few Republicans. But it's not looking good. And Joe Manchin is not budging. He is showing no signs that he's going to back off of his stance. He knows who he represents in West Virginia. Trump won that state. Those people are conservatives through and through. They're not going to be okay with him just towing the line with the Democrats all the time. So Biden is in trouble. And I expect to see more vitriol leveled at Joe Manchin from the Democrats. I also think the same will happen with Kyrsten Sinema. She's been pissing him off left and right. She most of the time votes with him, just as Manchin does, but on key issues or on certain areas, they stick to their principles. And I can respect that. So what do you guys think? You guys had a lot to say about this. All right. Okay. David Gray. Oh, why is it not coming up? Okay. Senator Sinema did a surprisingly good job of explaining the role of the Senate and why raw majoritarianism is a bad idea. Yes, she did. She did. And she's right. Because again, once Republicans get control of the Senate again, we're not going to hear a peep about the filibuster. It will no longer be a relic of Jim Crow. It will no longer be a relic of racism. They're going to love the filibuster. And you're not going to see any Republicans arguing to get rid of it. Gilgamesh's war cat. Dems thinking Manchin is pulling a Romney. Yeah, I guess Manchin is kind of their Romney, isn't he? Except that I think Manchin actually has principles. I could be wrong, though. What else we got here? Are you saying a moderate Democrat still exists? Actually, I do. And more than just Joe Manchin. I think a lot of Democrats are skeptical about this because you have to remember there are still Democrats representing areas that are full of what you would call blue dog Democrats that are on the left, but just a little bit. And I think a lot of moderates are not on board with the radical agenda that Biden is pushing through. And a lot of it is Biden having to kowtow to the far left crowd. But again, I've been watching the left. And if you've been paying attention, you know that the moderate faction is clashing with the AOCs and the Rashida Tlaibs of the party. They're having their own civil war right now. So yeah, there are moderate Democrats. You just don't hear about them that much. But you can but in a sense, you kind of do in some instances. You know, when Tim Scott made his comment about America not being a racist country, you had all these so-called progressives pretending to be mad at it. But then Vice President Kamala Harris, who actually is pretty far to the left, agreed with Tim Scott. So did Representative James Clyburn of South Carolina. They agreed with him. You know, shortly after Biden took office, there was a phone call where the moderates were bashing the far left, blaming them for the amount of seats that they lost in the House because they were pushing for ridiculous ideas like defunding the police and yada, 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 when they know that most people don't want that to happen, even among Democrats. Let's see. Wendy, The problem Dems have with Sinema and Manchin is that they put their constituents' wants and needs into their legislating, which is exactly how it should be. But, and I think Democrats are okay with that as long as it, goes their way, right? What else we got? Blot monster. Manchin is closer to the old-time Democrat when they actually cared about this country. Yep. And I think that there are more of them than we think. We just don't hear from them a lot. I think a lot of them are kind of working behind the scenes. And I've actually read articles to that effect. What else we got? Joy Behar is a clown. Yes, she is. Very much so. Don't talk about Whoopi, though. I love Whoopi. I don't care what her politics are. I've loved Whoopi Goldberg since I was a child. I will not say an ill word about her. Dagnabbit. Scott Messick, but they all loved John McCain when he was a maverick. Yeah, in the article that I wrote, I was like, okay, so when does it come time for us to start calling Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin mavericks? Because I think it might be warranted soon. What else we got here? All right. I think we can go on to the next subject. Making some decent time. Next thing I'm going to talk about is Kamala Harris goes to Guatemala. She's been traveling. She went to Guatemala yesterday, and she was in Mexico today, so I'm sure I'll be talking about that on the next live stream to talk about how that went. But her visit to Guatemala was rather interesting. And it's funny because she struck a remarkably different tone than what she did when during the campaign when she was running. So here I'll go through the story. So Vice President Kamala Harris, she went all the way to Guatemala to tell people not to come to the southern border. When she was there during a press conference. Sorry, this is funny. She issued a message to any migrant that's even thinking about making the trek to the southern border, thinking that they're going to gain entry into the United States, either legally or illegally. Her message was that you will not succeed. Now, some might like to say this message was better late than never, but it kind of rings hollow here, and I'm going to explain why in a second. But during a joint press conference with Guatemala President Alejandro, I'm not going to jack up his last name, Giammattei, Harris said, quote, "I want to emphasize that the goal of our work is to help Guatemalans find hope at home." She continued, quote, "At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come." She continued, she affirmed that the United States, quote, "will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border." And then she added, quote, "and I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back." I'm going to repeat that. Our vice president said, quote, "and I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back." Black Hillary said, quote, "and I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back." Is anybody catching this here? Is anybody noticing what she said? This is how ridiculous their handling of the situation is. The vice president of these United States of America can't even definitively say that migrants who attempt to cross the border will be turned back. The best that she can put up is that she believes that these folks won't make it into the country. Who the hell is running this thing anyway? Oh, wait, that's supposed to be her, the border czar. So that wasn't all that was said. I mean, when she landed in Guatemala, and a lot of conservatives were going crazy over this, and I don't blame them because it is hilarious. She was met by a bunch of Guatemalans who gave her a very sincere invitation to go the hell back to her country because they didn't want her there. Red State's Nick Arama, she wrote, quote, "when she landed in Guatemala, however, she was also met by protesters who didn't seem on board with her claimed effort to want to help the region so that people wouldn't be flooding illegally into the United States. The protesters included members of Society in Action who said they were pro-life and anti-leftist agenda, as well as members of the Veterans Association. And they had signs saying Trump won in Guatemala. They said Trump won. They had signs saying "Go back, Kamala." Oh, I would have been so embarrassed. I mean, I am kind of embarrassed for her because that sucks. Now, there are some other details too. The president of Guatemala stated that he'd be creating returnee centers where citizens who get deported from the United States can come and be accepted after being sent back home. And like I said, she was in Mexico today, and she did give an address early on. I wasn't able to catch it, but I'll be taking a look at that tomorrow. But here's the thing about Kamala Harris. I mean, she was tapped as border czar on the 27th of March, I believe. And since then, she hasn't come within a few miles of the border. She has been invited by Republican officials serving in border states to come down and see what's going on at with the migrants. They want her to see what's happening with the unaccompanied minors. It's a huge problem, guys. And I know that it hasn't been in the news as much lately. There's a reason for that. But this situation is getting worse and worse and worse. And I hate to say it, but I mean, there will be people who die because of this, not just because of the dangerous journey here, but what happens also after they get dropped off. Biden has restarted catch and release. He has rescinded a lot of the Trump era policies regarding immigration. And I had some issues with some of the things that Trump did. I think overall, his approach was a step in the right direction. There are some things that I thought he did wrong, and I've talked about it on my audio podcast, which you can get on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. But rescinding almost all of them was a horrible, horrible idea. It's one of the reasons why this crisis started. And you know, I wrote a story a while ago about Customs and Border Patrol having to drop off a lot of these migrants in border towns that are not equipped to take care of them. So they end up having to walk to other cities to try to see if they can, you know, get some help. A lot of them aren't even being given court dates to reappear to adjudicate their cases. But here's the thing. I mean, in a place like Arizona, when summer comes and they're trying to walk 30 miles to get to the next city, it's not going to turn out well. And it's tragic. That's the way Biden is mishandling this situation. As of yesterday, again, Kamala Harris hasn't been to the border. As of yesterday, it's been 76 days since she was installed as border czar, and she hasn't gone anywhere near the border. Now, when she was appointed to this role, they did kind of try to say, oh, well, her job won't be to deal with the actual U.S. immigration policy. Her job will be to go to other countries and solve the issues that they're facing so that people don't want to come here. She recently said that she was going to ask the United Nations to handle this part of it. And that tells me that they're not serious, because the UN has been shown to be both corrupt and incompetent. They're not going to do anything for these nations to boost their economies, to make sure that people want to stay home. And honestly, I'm not sure what role the U.S. plays in that. I'm sure there might be things that we can do to help them get on their feet or what have you. And yes, I do that would be effective at dissuading a lot of people to make that dangerous journey to the southern border. But honestly, this administration is not the one to do it. And by the way, I'm not just saying that because they're Democrats. I just think that Biden's team is incompetent. I think Obama might have handled this better, actually, even though I disagree with a lot of what Obama did. Biden just does not seem up to the task, and neither does his team. Now, by the Biden administration, along with its close friends and allies and the activist media, have repeatedly attempted to pass the blame for this. They have blamed everything that they could. They blamed climate change for the increase in migrants. They also blamed the orange man what is bad. It was his fault. But any person who's been paying attention to this and has a modicum of intellectual honesty knows that Biden's rhetoric over the past couple of years regarding immigration essentially invited people to come here. The way he talked about immigration sent the message to migrants that he was going to turn on the green light while rolling out a red carpet. We know that's essentially what he was saying. He even said that he wanted to see a surge at the border. Actually, you know what? I have some footage. And there's a lot of footage of Biden talking about immigration, but I have a piece of footage here that not a lot of people have seen, but it's easy to find online. But let me go and pull that up for you really quick. This is footage. Oh, wait. Okay. Hold on. This is going to be footage of Joe Biden talking directly to migrants when it comes to immigration and how we're going to be handling that from now on.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination. We'll begin with a sin, traveling in the world of my creation. What we'll see will defy explanation. If you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to do it. Want to change the world. There's nothing to it.
Now, like I said, you can find that footage anywhere. And that was President Joe Biden's message to migrants when he was talking about immigration. Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. I would have come up here too. I would have crossed the border too. It was amazing. And somebody said in the chat, you're right. He rocked that purple coat like nobody's business. And that is the problem. That is the cause of the issue that we're dealing with right now. He got rid of Remain in Mexico policy, which I get had some issues, but it was a step in the right direction. People need to know that if they're going to come up here, there's a good chance that they may not make it in. Not everybody was coming here because they actually needed asylum. They just wanted to work. By the way, we need to also deal with our legal immigration system as well. And I'm not just talking about decreasing H-1B visas and all that stuff. That's an issue too, but also, not making it so hard for actual, regular people who want to come in. If you see my video with Solomon Graham and you see the issues that he and his wife are going through just trying to get their kids over here legally, it would be easier for them to just sneak them over the border. And check that video out when you get a moment, because when he tells the story, you'll be infuriated. His kids are stuck in the Dominican Republic, even though his wife came here legally, went through the legal process. But it's taken about 2 years, and they're still in her kids are still in the Dominican Republic. And he gave me an update and saying that they're telling him that it's going to take another 8 to 12 months or something like that. It's absolutely absurd. It's obscene. So there are a lot of things that we need to fix with our immigration system. Unfortunately, I think that Republicans and Democrats in office don't really want to do anything about it. And it's sad. So let's see what you guys are talking about here in the chat. When you said Black Hillary, I thought you meant Hillary since she was married to the first Black president. That's true. But when I say Black Hillary, I'm talking about Kamala Harris. People get mad when I say that. I know, I get it. But I'm sorry, they have kind of the same personality, so it's hard for me to see it as anything different. Except Kamala Harris is far hotter than Hillary Clinton. I mean, that's no contest right there. And I know I'm being sexist by even comparing women, but I don't care. What else we got? Gilgamesh's war cat. Guy dated a woman from Guatemala. Most base woman I've ever dated. Guatemalans are awesome. I worked with an older guy from Guatemala when I was in my early 20s. Great guy. Let's see. What else we got? Jacob, her statement is propaganda. I don't believe her. It's a stunt to make people think they are going to start controlling illegal immigration. They won't. Unfortunately, I think you're right. I don't think they have any intention of handling this problem. I think they want the flood of migrants to come in. I mean, you've already seen that Joe Biden is pushing to grant a pathway to citizenship for over 11 million illegal immigrants. That's an issue. Now, when it comes to the Dreamers, I'm okay with that. They came here through no fault of their own. And, some people disagree with me, but most conservatives, I've looked at polling, and most Republicans are okay with providing Dreamers with some type of legal status or pathway to citizenship. That's fine. But when it comes to legalizing or granting 11 million, and it's going to be more than that, by the way, when it comes to granting millions of illegal immigrants a pathway to citizenship for breaking our laws, that's an issue. And I understand that we have to figure something out with that. But here's my thing. I'm not even willing to consider what to do with those 11 million illegal immigrants until we've got border security and until we've got policies that will prevent the flow of illegal immigrants into the country. If I were in Congress right now, and you should probably tell your congressman, don't even consider doing anything that even resembles amnesty until a legislation is proposed and passed that will take care of things like mandatory e-verify, finish the wall if that's necessary, beef up our border security, take away the factors that encourage people to come here illegally in the first place. Once that's done, now I'm willing to talk about what we do with the people who are already here, and I'm willing to budge on some of that stuff. Now, not everybody's going to agree with me on that, but it's kind of silly because we're not going to be able to deport them all. We're not even going to be able to deport most of them. Even Trump wasn't trying to deport them like that. He was only going after people who committed additional crimes after they got here. That's who ICE was going after under Trump. Very few of the people who were deported were deported just because they came here illegally. They in most cases, they had to have done something else after getting here. So we do have to solve that problem. But again, we got to shut it down. Otherwise, this problem will continue. We saw what happened under Reagan. He agreed to amnesty because the Democrats promised him that they'll beef up border security, and they were lying the whole time. What else we got? But she hasn't been to Europe either. See, that video is why I call her Black Hillary. That awkward laugh and all that stuff. Hillary Clinton did that all the time. What else we got here? Who do you think is really running for the presidency? Old Joe isn't, or running the presidency. I think so too. I think it's mainly his team. And to be fair, that's how it is for most presidents, right? They're not always in depth calling all the shots. It's it's the president's team that advises him on what to do, gives him the facts, and then he goes from there. But I think that's happening more under Biden. I don't think he's up to it. Let's see. Yeah, you're right, Scott. Those laws need to be passed and funded and actually put into action. Then I think that at that point, and that point only, that's when we should start talking about how we deal with the people who are already here. Again, I'm open. I'm open to some type of solution, whether it's legal status, whether they have to pay a fee or what have you. I'm open, but I'm only open to it as long as the border is closed. That's it. Unfortunately, the Sesame Streeters on both sides don't want to have that conversation. Yeah, you're right. But Sesame Streeters aren't really one for conversation. They prefer personalities over principles. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have in our country today. So I'm going to go on to the next subject. I'm getting through this pretty quickly. Might even finish early. Maybe. Next, we are going to talk about China. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis recently signed a couple of bills that are designed specifically to curb foreign influence from the Chinese Communist Party, as well as other communist governments. Now, a lot of people are seeing the story and they're focusing mainly on Ron DeSantis because he's the new superstar or what have you. And that's fine, I guess, whatever. But I want to talk about this story. And actually, I'm going to pull up another article that I wrote on this too, just so I can reference it, because there's some stuff that people don't know about. And yeah. So Governor Ron DeSantis signed 2 bills. And I think that this legislation could be a significant step towards hampering foreign interests who want to steal our secrets, try to influence policy, and use what we are creating to benefit their authoritarian governments. So DeSantis signed these 2 bills and he gave a press conference on it. He bashed the Communist Party of China, and he also bashed their American allies, which, by the way, Facebook is one of China's biggest allies. I'm going to talk about that on the next live stream because I just wrote an article today that is just infuriating. So when he was talking about the bill in front of reporters, he said, quote, he was saying that these foreign actors will not be able to infiltrate Florida's institutions. He said, quote, not the Communist Party of China, not Russia, not Cuba, not North Korea, not Iran, not Syria, not Venezuela. He said, quote, in fact, the first bill signed today safeguards our public institutions from undue foreign influence, and that means prohibiting agreements between public entities and the Communist Party of China or Cuba or any of these other malignant forces. Now, I'm not going to go over every single thing that was in the bills, but I'm going to go over the salient points. So one of the bills, it's called the Combating Corporate Espionage in Florida Act. It's going to give second-degree felony charges for trafficking and trade secrets. What this means is that if, like, let's say I'm working at a government-run research laboratory, and we're researching, I don't know, some type of medication or what have you. If I'm discovered to have sold trade secrets to a foreign government, I could face a first-degree felony. Another piece of the legislation would also require entities like colleges and universities. They would require them to report grants or gifts or contracts from any foreign source that exceeds $50,000. Now, it's also going to make for stricter vetting standards, so that if you come from a foreign country like China or Venezuela, they're going to vet the hell out of you according to this legislation to make sure that you don't have undue ties to these governments or other organizations or other totalitarian states that might benefit from the research that we're doing here in the United States, well, actually, particularly in Florida, because it's not a federal law. According to the Tampa Bay Times, it says, quote, people and entities seeking grants or contracts from the state of more than $100,000 will be required to disclose contracts, donations, or grants linking them to China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, and Syria. State universities with other entities, state universities and other entities with research budgets of 10 million or more also will have to create a, quote, international travel approval and monitoring program under the measure. The new laws will also ban certain entities like the Confucius Institutes on universities. DeSantis is quoted as saying, quote, it also makes sure we don't make deals with private companies that are closely tied to these adversaries, and would ensure that foreign entities seeking to engage with higher learning institutions are fully vetted. Now, and actually, before I go on, just to explain the issue that's happening and what this is meant to prevent is that a country like China will send college-age students or even adults over to the United States. They go through the legal process to get here. And they will go to our universities and conduct espionage. They will take certain teachings or certain practices and report it back to China. But even worse, when it comes to science and scientific studies and research, they might work for a government agency that is researching things like cures for cancer or what have you, and then they will bring that information back to China so that they can benefit from it. I want to bring something else up here. Let's see. Let me go to, yes. This has been an issue for quite a while. Let's see. Where'd it go? Okay. So I explained how it works, as far as the enhanced felonies and things like that. But I had written down some examples of this happening. Let's say, okay, yeah. So this is actually from floridapolitics.com. And they had written an article and they gave an example. So here's an example. So in February, federal authorities indicted a University of Florida researcher who created a company in China that would profit from his taxpayer-funded research at the university. So we're paying for these people to learn certain things, and then it's going to benefit a company in China. And if you know anything about China, there aren't any major companies that the government doesn't control or have a hand in. So you're helping the Chinese government. The researcher and Chinese resident, his name was Lin Yang, he reportedly concealed support from the Chinese government. So he didn't even disclose the fact that he had started this company in China and was using the research that we pay for to benefit and make a profit with that company. Investigators said Yang was awarded grant money to develop, quote, an imaging informatics tool for mussels known as Mussel Miner, and worked on the project from 2014 to 2019. But Yang simultaneously had launched a business in China, and according to the Department of Justice, quote, promoted his business in China by relating that its products were the result of years of research supported by millions of dollars of U.S. government funding. Now, Yang traveled to China in August of 2019 and has yet to return to the United States. He ain't coming back. There was another case. It's crazy that this was even allowed to happen in the first place. But there was another case in which 4 faculty members of another Florida learning institution, and these 4 faculty members either resigned or were terminated in cases of potential foreign involvement between February of 2017 and August of 2018. One of them resigned and then fled the country. These 4 faculty members also worked with research entities in China. So they will use our system to steal our secrets in order to benefit them. And China's not the only country doing it. It sounds like they're the main one. But the Florida's government is trying to stop this. By the way, both of these bills passed unanimously. That means Republicans and Democrats voted for both of these bills that are now law. But during the press conference, Governor DeSantis, he took aim at the Chinese Communist Party. He criticized them, and he criticized the American entities that helped them. He said, quote, if you look at what's gone on now with the coronavirus pandemic and the cover-up of the origins of COVID-19, it's pretty clear that this was a virus that was almost assuredly, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get demonetized or kicked off. But you know where the virus came from, right? I mean, or at least you know where it's suspected of coming from. And you know what, certain entities were trying to hide, right? What China was trying to hide, what the WHO was trying to hide, and even to a certain extent, the Biden administration. So, and again, I'm not saying for sure that it came from a lab. It may not have come from a lab. YouTube, don't mess with me. But at the same time, there is credibility to that suspicion. And we may never know whether or not it came from the lab. He also slammed the activist media and the entertainment industry for basically aiding and abetting the Chinese government's cover-up. He said, quote, "You look at corporate media and entertainment industry in this country, they are in the pocket of the Communist Party of China. I mean, if Hollywood comes up with a movie the CCP doesn't like, they get censored." Now, y'all saw that video from last week of John Cena, his apology movie for daring to mention that Taiwan is its own country. China doesn't like that. So John Cena apologized in Chinese. And he got a lot of criticism for wussing out and what have you. Although I don't think that any person who claims that he's weak would actually say that to his face. I know I wouldn't, but still. I mean, and I think he was put up to doing it. I'm not sure if he wanted to do it or not, but either way, he had to do it for the company that he was working for. And, a lot of companies are in China's pocket. Disney is one of them. Bob Iger had still has a very close relationship with China, especially when he was running Disney. He had nothing but great things to say about their regime, even though they, are committing genocide and locking up Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. These people, a lot of them on the left, are willing to protect this regime because of the interests that they have there. I think it's honestly one of the reasons why Biden won't go too hard after them. I'm not going to go so far as to say that he's in their pocket, but it is suspicious, isn't it? Now, it's good that DeSantis is doing this. It's good that Florida's government is doing this, but that's one state. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see other states follow. Again, I told you this was bipartisan in Florida, unanimous. I do think that there will be a lot of blue states who don't do it, and I'm sure that the activist media will say that everybody is racist for putting in this type of legislation because, they're only doing it because they hate Chinese people. And what's sad is that what I just said is not even satire. You guys know that that's what they're going to say if Texas and Alabama and, other red states put out a legislation like this, what they're going to say. And it's absurd, but this is the world that we live in right now, right? Now, this only deals with government entities, but what about private companies? Because the Chinese agents infiltrate private businesses as well. I'm just going to reference this article, and I'll go more into detail on it on another stream. Wait, where'd it go? Did I shut it down? Maybe I did. Oh, no, I didn't. It's right here. It came out. This was last year. It was actually in December of last year, so not too long ago. There were leaked documents revealing that the Chinese Communist Party has people placed in high up positions in some of the most major companies in the Western world, not just in the United States. At least 335 employees of HSBC, which is, I believe, a British bank, at least 335 employees were card-carrying members of the Chinese Communist Party. So these aren't just Chinese citizens. These are active members of the Chinese Communist Party. The database that was leaked showed almost 2 million registered members of the CCP were placed in key positions in various Western nations. Now, the database was leaked to an international group of legislators called the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. And, it includes Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat, New Jersey, and Marco Rubio, Republican from Florida. And these people are placed in very high up positions in these companies in the United Kingdom, in the United States, France, Spain, other countries. So this type of legislation will help when it comes to government-run entities. But what about private companies where they're coming in and a lot of them are probably stealing secrets? A lot of them are up to all kinds of malfeasance. And even worse, they are influencing these companies. If you've got people who are high up executives or even just a step down from that, they are having a tremendous influence on these companies. That's a problem. That is a problem. And we'll discuss that a little bit later, but I just wanted to at least throw that out there just so that you guys know what's going on. 2 million people, 2 million card-carrying members of the Chinese Communist Party in major organizations across the Western world. I guarantee you that they're not just there for a paycheck, or at least not just a paycheck from the company, getting a paycheck from China too. So what do you guys think? Let's see. Where do I post my articles? So I write for redstate.com, and I also write for a site called libertynation.com. The article that I just told you about the members of the Communist Party and major institutions, that one's in Red State. I'll try to remember to put that in the show notes. But yeah, it's intense. But yeah, if you ever want to read my work, redstate.com and libertynation.com. Let's see. Your takes are so fire, your glass is sweating. Your glasses are sweating. Yeah, that happens. I need to go back to contacts. What else we got here? Arnold, the companies where I was, I think you're saying you were, the companies is what you were curious about. Me too. When I first read that article, and then I remembered that I had written on it just a few months ago. That's what I really want to dig into. I mean, because this is all good. I mean, we have to be concerned about them having influence over our state governments, right? And our federal government. I wouldn't be surprised if people push for federal legislation on this. We know the Biden administration is not going to. We know the Democrats aren't going to try to handle this at the federal level. But, I mean, Trump spotlighted a lot of this stuff. You know, love him or hate him, President Trump highlighted a lot of this stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what'll happen as the party kind of leaves the establishment behind, which the establishment would probably be okay with a lot of this China stuff. But it'll be interesting to see the stance that the right takes to this. What else we got? Hotep Pops. I would bet that many of these students come from families that have influence and or money with someone in DC. I wouldn't be surprised. You might be right about that. What else we got here? Oh my gosh, really? USA Trump, man. The WHO said today, that the World Health Organization said today they will be naming all pandemics and variants from now on. Due to racism against Asian Americans caused by Trump created the atmosphere for the racist attacks. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the people who were beating up Asians were taking a cue from Trump. A lot of them were black. You know, black people ain't messing with Trump like that. Trump doesn't have influence over the black community like that. They weren't all black. I mean, there were Latinos too, but still, I mean, no. The thing is, they say this stuff and they know it's not true, by the way. They don't actually believe this stuff. They're just hoping that you'll believe it. Let's see. ASAP King, stop Asian hate with CCP propaganda. You know, if you have a source for that, let me know. I would love to talk about that. You need to make sure that it's accurate first. I'm not saying that you're lying or anything like that. I just I didn't hear about that. So yeah, point me in the right direction and I'll look it up. Jacob, these seem like common sense laws put forth by Florida. Needs to expand to private companies. The NBA seems to be cozy with the CCP. Yes, I didn't even think about the NBA. Yes, they are like this with the CCP. It's a problem. And as much as I'm a free enterprise guy, we have to be careful. I mean, I'm all into free enterprise, but doing business with, a government that is communist and is using you to spread your influence in the United States, that's a dangerous game. It's what Facebook is doing. Facebook, I can't get started on this because I'm out of time. Facebook, and it is, I can't even, I wasn't that surprised by it, but it's just how blatant it is. They'll censor conservatives and others, but the Chinese Communist Party, they are more than okay with them spreading blatant propaganda using their platform. And I'm going to save that for Friday's live stream. All right. But I think I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys for showing up. Again, if you want to support my work, join my online community at afreshperspective.locals.com. Only $4.99 per month. I'm going to be putting up some videos there this week, some more videos, because I put up a couple last week. And also, if you want to do a one-time donation, links are right here and also in the show notes. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell and please share this video. Hit that share button. That helps me out a lot too. I'm going to be putting out a new episode of my A Fresh Perspective podcast, audio only, pretty soon. I wrapped up the recording today, so I'm just going to edit tomorrow and we'll have it up soon. But as always, until next time, keep your minds free.